Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, typically after a new release of Linux Mint, I like going in and doing a live upgrade to the next version. I always give it a few weeks, make sure there's no major bugs being reported. I haven't seen any, and so we are going to go ahead and take this production laptop, which is my Edge production laptop, and I'm going to upgrade it from Linux Mint 22 to Linux Mint 22.1 utilizing the automated upgrades. So you can see here what the system is. Linux Mint 22, we're on currently Cinnamon version 6.2.9, Linux kernel 6.8. We have a Ryzen 5 3450U, 13 gigs, it's like 16 gigs with some dedicated to memory. And we have a couple different hard drives in here. We're running X. And so we want to go into the update manager, and you'll notice that we have an upgrade to Linux Mint 22.1, excuse me. Now, I do want to point out a couple things before we do that. And the first thing that we want to mention here is make sure your system is completely up to date first before you do anything. And I already did that today, and you might boot up your update manager and need to update the update manager itself. Always go ahead and do that. Next thing I want to look at is the software sources. There are two PPAs that I do have on this. The OBS is enabled. There was a problem with the OBS that was in the last package base I looked at. So, or it was that issue that it wasn't streaming that one time, which I thought was a problem, but it ended up being a configuration change that needed to be made. I'm not sure why the Kden Live PPA is not enabled there. So you used to have to remove all of these and then roll back to the old versions before the upgrade. That was in the documentation. If we have to do that, it will be automated in the modern steps. So I'm not worried about this yet. We're going to see what the system says. So the other issue that we might have to work with is that usually the system's going to check for time shift updates. I'm going to set the updater to not check for that. I actually have uninstalled it from my system. I think I probably did that because I rarely, if ever, use it. For me personally, it's easier for me to just reinstall the whole system and move my files back over if there's a problem with it. And I removed it because if you remember, this computer had a really small hard drive. It has a 1 terabyte now. We did a video where we upgraded that, and I just never installed the application back on. But we're going to go ahead and run this and see what we get. This is not making a major package-based change, so I'm not expecting any major issues with this. But let's go ahead and have a look through everything. So here is the introduction, and then our next screen goes through the information on the release notes. Of course, we looked at the release notes on the video when we first looked at Linux Mint 22.1. We also looked at some of the new features, so you can refer to my previous video there. And then now we can look at, over here, we get into the requirements to understand the risk. There is always a risk when you're upgrading your system. I've never actually had a problem with a Linux Mint system upgrading my system. So we are not going to be super concerned about all that. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply. Have to enter your password. Now it's going to do a basic package update, verify that the system is up to date. And now it's going to be downloading system files. So what it's doing now is it's downloading all the system files for the upgrade. And it's telling us here it's going to take about 4 minutes to download everything. And we are using the Fastly repository. If you go back over to the repository, this is the new beta repository for a CDN-based repository there. So we are letting that run, and it looks like that's going to take about 4 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when this is done. So the downloads were done. You might have seen right before I turned off the record, there was the prompt about the force quit or wait. I'm not sure why that showed up. So the software updater is on this requirements tab. It was that application that's running in the background. So for whatever reason, it thought it wasn't running as the system was applying the updates. I've not noted any problems with that. It was just something that you might have seen quickly. I didn't shut the thing off because, an error showed up. I actually shut it off as like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on there? And so I did look at that. I have no idea why that showed up. So just reporting the issue. If you have that show up, just hit the wait button, because what that is that's actually the updater running in the background. If you force quit that, you might mess up your system. So be aware of that. And now it is installing and removing software. So this is actually where it's making the transition. Apparently, it didn't really care about the extra repository in there, unless we're going to see that in a next step. But we'll come back when this is done installing. We're coming up on the very end of the installing and removing. Now it says successfully applied all changes. Hit close. And now it is downloading more package files. So this one here, it looks like it's downloading the new wallpapers and the power profile system. That was some of the new features that were installed in the new version. So it looks like it might actually have already completed itself. Very, very minor upgrade from one to the other. So I would probably say on that basis, no real problems if you are deciding to upgrade. So now the system is removing software. So you can see it's just a series of these dialog boxes in between. Now it says it was successfully upgraded. Now reboot your computer. All right, well, let's go ahead and reboot. So you don't see it on the external monitor yet, but we got our password prompt for our disk encryption right now. So we've entered that. That sets itself up successfully. And next, there's the Linux Mint now properly transferring over to the external monitor now. And now we just need to get ourselves logged in. So we look correct. Let's go ahead and check our system information. Now we are at Linux Mint 22.1. Have a look at my software sources. So when we enter our software sources, you can see that it did not even disable the PPA for OBS. So in theory, even OBS is perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and see if it boots up. And hey, who's that guy right there? That's put for my webcam on the computer. All right. So that looks good. Of course, we're not going to test that out in full glory right here, but that looks correct. And everything else appears to be here. Let's have a look at Firefox. Haven't booted that since we did upgrades. All right. So that looks decent. Let's check which version that is. This is 134. Looks like 135 is not pushed out to Linux Mint yet. And everything else so far looks decent. Let's have a look at Audacity here. See if that loads. Yeah, there it goes. All right, so our system is successfully upgraded. So based on my very, very quick upgrade path there, this is the easiest upgrade I've ever done from a Linux Mint to the current version. So definitely worth doing if you are concerned with doing the upgrade. Obviously, maybe you might want to do that time shift. Don't take my advice on that one. I would do the time shift on that instead of what I do. But overall, it looks like a very good upgrade. No problems restarting, rebooting. Everything looks correct. I am seeing something in here. It looks like, okay, it looks like we have an international support for MIT Kerber OS. I have no idea what that is. And everything else is just flat packs. So I will manage those flat packs at a later time. So there we have it, folks. The upgrade path, nice and simple, works well. Thank you for watching, and keep those systems up to date.